In this example, the certificate is worth $500 because it's saving you $500. What's up guys, it's Sebastian from Ask Sebby Business. Today we're going to look at the changes to the Bank of America Alaska Business and Personal Cards. One of the cool things is that the positive changes have already happened, while the negative ones don't happen until March 1st of 2023. This means that you have a 45-day window to pick up the card at the lower annual fee. If you are someone watching afterwards, then you can see how the card has evolved and my thoughts around this. With that said though, big favor before we dive into everything is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm, given that we kind of are in a niche of a niche with business cards. And if you are someone new to this channel, the business channel, then consider subscribing. Going to good news first or the bad news? Bad news. Okay, got it. So number one is that the annual fee is going up. Right now, the personal is at $75 and it's going up to $95. For the business, it's $75 and going up to a minimum of $95 because each additional authorized user is $25. So in this case, if you have one user, it's $95. If you have two, it's going to be about $120. If you do have a bunch of employees and you want to issue them cards, this might not be the best pick. But there is a pretty interesting change here that gets some benefits from having the card, even if you're not flying with them. We'll get to that in about 2 minutes. This leads into number two, and it's the fact that your first free checked bag is no longer free unless you used Alaska card to book the flight. In the past, all you needed was to have the Alaska card in your account that was linked to it, and you could use another card like the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and that was fine. Now you can't do that, you have to have the Alaska card and book using the card. To be fair though, this does seem pretty fair and also in line with a lot of other airlines. I think I unintentionally did a bit of fun wordplay. So for example, for both United, Hawaiian, as well as JetBlue, you do need to use your card to pay for the flight in order to get that free checked bag perk. In contrast, at least as a filming, for Airplan, American, as well as Delta, that's not the case. Reminder that for Alaska, it is your first free checked bag for you, as well as up to 6 additional companions, so you plus 6 people. This could be a huge value if you are someone that has a pretty large family, or you travel with coworkers and they're checking in a lot of bags. Probably a cliche example, but imagine if you were a film crew filming a documentary and you were flying up to Alaska. Number 3, the card no longer gets a discount for day passes for Alaska lounges. I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but of the Alaska lounges I've visited, they haven't been that impressive. At least for me, the fancy first and business class lounges such as Polaris, as well as Flagship, are up on top. Then you have Centurion lounges, then Delta, and then I would say American and United, and then finally Alaska. Of course, your mileage may vary, and maybe I've just had bad experiences. Again, all of these negative changes start on March 1st of 2023, so there is that window. Before we talk about the positives, if you are someone that wants to learn more about this card or pretty much any other card out there and you want to support the channel, we do have links down below in the description box. Make sure that they're competitive and that the card makes sense for you, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel and especially the side channel, so thank you guys in advance. Okay, what positive changes are coming? Number 1, you get priority boarding when the ticket is purchased with the card. This seems like a solid perk in my book, especially if you are someone that's more of a less frequent flyer. So let's say you fly a decent amount, but not enough to have status. In that case, especially if you do have luggage and you don't want to gate check it, then it's a good perk to at least board a little bit earlier and get settled and get that overhead compartment. I know for me at least, I'm generally carrying a lot of electronics, so I don't want to gate check, and sometimes when they ask me, I'm not even sure if I can because it's full of batteries. Number 2, Alaska added more multipliers. The business card now earns 2x Alaska back on gas, local transit, as well as shipping. The personal earns 2x on the same gas, local transit, but also rideshare, cable, and select streaming. I know that 2x doesn't sound like a lot, but Alaska miles are pretty powerful, and I'd argue some of the most powerful points out there. Especially if you are someone interested in aspirational travel, so first in business, then these are must-haves. Also factor in that none of the major programs transfer over to Alaska, so you cannot just transfer your Chase Ultimate Reward points over to Alaska. The only one that technically exists is Bonvoy, but even then, the value isn't really there. Transferring anything from Bonvoy to an airline generally is not worth it. Outside of edge cases and topping off, I don't think I'd recommend it. I'll talk more about some flight examples in a future review video, but know that they're powerful. Number 3, you're going to get a 10% bonus on miles you earn if you have an eligible bank account. So for the personal one, you do need to have a personal account, and for the business, you do need to have a business checking account. In my case, I have a personal checking, but I have the business card, so I would actually need to get a business checking account if I were to take advantage of the multipliers. Number 4, you're going to get $100 off Alaska Lounge Plus membership when you purchase with the card. So for Lounge Plus, it's normally going to be $550 to $650, depending on if you have status. If you're someone buying it anyways, then I think this is great value. And in that case, you could argue that the savings there, if you were buying it anyways, would cover the annual fee of the card. Arguably getting it for free, but maybe that's a stretch. For example, for myself, at least as of right now, I don't see myself buying an Alaska Plus membership, so I don't value this perk. Number 5 is one of the more interesting changes. If an authorized user of the card uses it to buy the flight, Even if they're not flying with the primary user, then they're going to get free checked bags as well as priority boarding. This means that they can fly without you but still get the benefits, which is pretty powerful. Consider that with a lot of other airlines, that's generally not the case, so if you do have the choice, then this might be the thing that pushes you over. I guess you are paying $25 additional per employee, so it does kind of potentially add up, but I'm assuming if they're traveling enough, it's going to pay for itself. I think this is awesome if you do have a lot of employees who are either traveling for sales or marketing or kind of deployment. So for example, if you're a deployment engineer, or if you're doing a lot of conferences and stuff, then this is pretty useful. If you are a substantially smaller business and you have a player two that maybe travels by themselves separately as well, then this also can be useful. Okay, so what is not changing? Number one, the annual companion fare, so the thing that people like about the card, is sticking around. This is great news because a lot of people thought they were getting rid of this and it'd be the first thing on the chopping block. If you are someone that's not familiar with this, it's pretty much a once-use certificate that you get every year for renewing the card. That's a buy one get one fare. Hence companion fare and not a companion pass that you can use unlimited times. It does start at $122, so $99 for the fare that you're paying, as well as $23 for fees. Depending on the routes you fly and also the dates, that could easily be $300 to $500 in value. Maybe if you're flying super last minute, then it's going to be $1,000, or if you're flying more of a premium cabin, then that's the case, but for most people, probably $300 to $500. Be careful because you won't necessarily always get value from this. So for example, if I'm flying from San Francisco to Vegas, maybe I'm only saving $50 or $100. For San Francisco to Los Angeles, maybe it's $0. Let's do a super fast example to illustrate this. Let's say I want to go to Los Angeles in February, it's going to be $98 per person. In this case, I have the choice of either paying $98 directly to Alaska or using my certificate and paying $122. In this case, you're better off paying directly because the alternative isn't worthwhile. In contrast, let's say I want to fly from San Francisco to Boston on the same exact dates. $619 retail price minus the $122 out of pocket for the taxes and fees. For that certificate, you get $497. In this example, the certificate is worth about $500 because it's saving you $500. I'm still paying $619 for myself, but if Mandy was flying as well, then I'm using that certificate and paying $122. Call me crazy, but I'd happily pay $100, give or take, for that annual fee for a certificate that's going to save me $500. And for a lot of people, this can easily be a keeper card due to that certificate. On the West Coast, it feels like everything's pretty close, but imagine if you were on the East Coast and trying to visit Alaska. I know some people aren't a fan of Alaska, but I do feel like it's pretty serviceable. On the West Coast, if I'm going up to Seattle or Salt Lake, or down to LA or Phoenix, then it's pretty cheap. I could also fly to the East Coast to Chicago, Nashville, New Orleans, or even Boston. Which brings us to the question of whether the card's worth picking up. I think the intro bonus is a no-brainer because of how business cards work and the fact that it's generally pretty competitive. If it stops making sense in year 2, you can always cancel and it doesn't really affect your personal credit. Outside of defaults or missed payments or anything, business cards, generally speaking, do not hit your personal credit report. If you are looking to keep it long term, then it depends on if you are going to use the free checked bag perk and if you care about priority boarding, and also if you're going to use that certificate. Does it make sense to spend on the card? I think it does, especially if you care about that aspirational stuff, and I will run through examples in the full review. To put it into perspective, if someone allowed me to transfer my Chase points to only one airline, I think this would be a strong contender. Okay, 5 main takeaways for today's video. Number 1, the Bank of America Alaska Business and Personal Cards are having their annual fee increase, so now might be a good time to pick it up. Number 2, in order to get perks such as free checked bags in the future, you are going to have to use the card to pay for the flight. Number 3, they're no longer going to have discounts for day passes, but they do have a discount for annual membership. 4, the card now has better multipliers, and number 5, the annual companion fare is sticking around, so don't worry. Again, if you do want to learn about cards, we do have links down below in the description box. If you made it to this point in the video, then leave a snowflake emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. My question for you is, what are your thoughts on the change, and also what are your thoughts on the card as a whole? So for me, I've gotten the personal and business card a few times, but mostly for the intro bonus, and secondarily for the companion fare. Big favor, give this a thumbs up, consider subscribing to this channel, but otherwise, hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time.